Here's your next episode of This Week in Gaming, where I cover what happened throughout the week in gaming news, in case you missed it. There's a lot of Nintendo news, so let's start off with the non-Nintendo news, and then we'll dive into what the Big N has been doing. Starting with Dbrand, who has faced a lot of backlash this week over their new case, the Kill Switch, for the Switch 2. Dbrand, that makes cases and stickers for pretty much all electronics out there, released a case for the Switch 2 called the Kill Switch, and there's a major problem with it. Users started to report that if they held the Switch 2 with one hand, the controller would actually disconnect, causing the Switch 2 to fall over, risking that you could break the screen. And Dbrand is also known for being really snarky and a bit of a smartass, and their response was to say no one holds their Switch 2 that way, so it's not a big deal. But people holding their $500 console weren't finding it too funny, so they had a lot of backlash because a lot of people showed that that's exactly how they hold their Switch 2 if they're trying to take a drink or trying to scratch their nose. But to the credit of Dbrand, they stepped back and they said our snarky response probably wasn't the right approach for this. We are looking into it, and they're going to rework their press machine so that way the case fits more properly, causing this to not happen anymore, and they're going to deal with the people who are having this issue. So if you do have one of these Kill Switch cases, double check that it's not going to fall, because you may damage your Switch 2, and I'm sure you could reach out to Dbrand and they're going to be willing to work with you to correct the issue, because Dbrand is pretty good with that. In Microsoft news, we found out that layoffs are going to be a lot worse than people were expecting, and now a lot of developers are worried. Microsoft has been laying people off for the last little while, and there were rumors that they're going to do another set of layoffs in the Xbox division specifically. The rumors said that it was going to be a couple hundred people, but now it looks like it's going to be a lot worse, because some insiders are saying it's going to be anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 people that may be laid off. This will have such a big impact that it looks like full branches may be shuttering their doors, causing a lot of the companies that Microsoft bought to just go out of business completely. And in that video, a lot of people commented that this was Game Pass's fault and Xbox should be holding on to games for their own platform instead, which I do agree they should be doing that, but that's not the reason. Microsoft is making more money than they've ever made, and they own Xbox, yet they're still firing more people, and it's because they just want to keep more profits for themselves. And with Game Pass, Xbox has been more profitable than before, so it is a system that is working, and I just hope that the developers that are going to get laid off find something soon. Good luck to you. Capcom gave us a deeper look into Resident Evil Requiem, where they spoke about the rumors that were out there. Ever since it got announced, people were rumoring that Leon Kennedy was going to be the protagonist of this game, but the execs came out and said that that's not what they planned. They wanted to make him the star, but he's a little bit too tough and he wouldn't fit in a scary game. Maybe none of them have played Resident Evil 2, because Leon was in that and those were really scary games. So the execs went on to say that they decided to go with Grace Ashcroft, who is a new character, part of the Ashcroft family from earlier games. But the original leaker who said that Leon Kennedy was going to be the protagonist of this game not only dismissed what they said, but he doubled down, because he says he's 100% sure Leon Kennedy is going to be the protagonist, and that this is Capcom's ploy to try to fool you because they want to surprise you. And now what you've been waiting for, all the Nintendo news that happened this week, because there's quite a bit of it. And let's start with Nintendo's Rumble feature has a glitch and nobody's talking about it, and Nintendo's just ignoring it. I discovered this because this happened to me, but a lot of people are reporting that they're getting a message on their screen that says prolonged rumble use detected, and then it turns off your rumble feature on your controller, and there's nothing you can do to turn it off. If you go into your settings, there is no way to turn this off, and there's no explanation what this rumble feature means. Some people are assuming that it has to do with battery life, other people assume that it has to do with the rumble feature being too delicate, and others think that it's just a firmware issue that can be updated and fixed, but Nintendo's done nothing about it. Either way, it's really annoying if you're in the middle of the action and all of a sudden your rumble control just stops working, even though that's a feature you've paid for. And when you pay so much money for the Pro Controller and it stops doing it, it's pretty frustrating. Digital Foundry reviewed the Switch 2 and opened the tidal wave to a lot of criticism for the Switch 2 screen. Digital Foundry did a deep dive into the Switch 2 and gave it a 2-hour video talking about what they thought about the console itself. Overall, they said that it felt like a substantial upgrade from the Switch 1 and it was a fairly enjoyable experience, all except for the screen. When it comes to the screen, they said it's not truly HDR because it's nowhere near bright enough and it doesn't have a good enough contrast ratio. They criticized the VRR because they're saying that developers aren't making it work properly. Where it should be able to reach as low as 1 frame a second, it's actually stopping somewhere around 40 frames a second, which means there's a major issue in how they're using it. But the biggest criticism was the actual response time on the screen, because it turns out that this is one of the slowest screens on the market, and it's actually slower than even last generation screens, including the Switch 1. And what this means is a lot of people are getting smearing that's very noticeable to them, and it's making the image look a lot worse than it needs to, especially in fast action scenes or side-scrolling games. And once Digital Foundry said this, a bunch of people started testing it, and it looks like they're right. The Switch 2 is almost double the speed as the Switch 1, so it's an incredibly slow screen, and it doesn't look really good when even the cheapest screens are performing better than this thing. And the experts are suggesting that there are solutions, like inserting dark frames in between each frame in order to stop the smearing, but that can introduce flicker. And the other solution was to enable overdrive in the screen, which is basically trying to make the screen respond faster by adding more voltage to it. But people think that there's a concern for battery life, although Monitor on Box did say that they spoke to somebody who works with screens like this, and adding that feature would actually only reduce battery life by about 1%, which is pretty much only a few minutes. And even then, it may not be possible because if the controller for the screen doesn't allow for voltage variance, experience, then that means they can't add this overdrive feature, and anybody who bought a Switch 1 is just kind of stuck with a crummy screen. Mario Kart World and the update that possibly ruined the game. Mario Kart World was Nintendo's attempt at an open world racing game, and they implemented it in kind of a lackluster way. People expected it to be like Burnout Paradise, where you just found random races that you could participate in, and the world turned out to not have that and instead be really empty and kind of boring. So it's pretty much a regular Mario Kart game, and if you want to have real fun with it, you're gonna play online with strangers or with your friends. But that came with a problem, because you had to vote for what track you wanted to race on next, and because it's an open world, you could only choose tracks that were near you. But that meant part of the race was actually getting to the race, which is what they call the intermission race, and that would eat up 2 of the laps, so you would only really get 1 lap on the track you wanted to actually play. But players figured out if you voted for a random track, it would actually pick from tracks anywhere on the map, so that way you could actually get all 3 laps in the race, more likely than not. Well, Nintendo updated Mario Kart World, and now they've made it so even when you pick a random track, it only picks from the tracks near you, so now it's a 75% chance you're gonna have to do that intermission race, meaning you're only gonna get 1 lap on any track. And lots of people are saying that this ruined Mario Kart World because now they can't choose what track they want to race on and have just 3 simple laps. Instead, Nintendo's forcing them to play in a way that nobody really wants to play. And that's what happened this week in news. So if you want to see the videos more in detail, you can go back and watch my shorts. And if you like this format, then don't forget to subscribe so you can always catch it at the end of the week and I tell you what went on this week. I'll see you later.